Everyone knows that blue eyes are a relatively recent mutation in human evolution. For years, scientists have told us the story with confidence. A single genetic change occurred somewhere in the Black Sea region around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. One person was born with blue eyes, and the trait spread from there across Europe. Simple, linear, settled science. But what if that entire timeline is wrong? In March 2019, a team from the Center for Geogenetics at the University of Copenhagen began analyzing DNA samples from ancient burial sites across Scandinavia sites. The samples came from a region near Trondheim, Norway, where permafrost had preserved organic material for millennia. Dr. Eske Willerslev, a leading expert in ancient DNA research, expected routine confirmation of existing theories. What he found instead left him struggling to explain. The DNA extracted from a skeletal remain dated to approximately 12,700 years ago belonged to an individual who lived during the late Paleolithic period, thousands of years before the accepted origin of blue eyes. The genetic markers were unmistakable. This person had blue eyes, not a precursor mutation, not a transitional form. Fully developed blue eyes, identical to those found in modern Scandinavians. According to every established timeline, this should not be possible. Dr. Willerslev submitted the findings to 3 independent laboratories for verification. Each confirmed the same result. The OCA2 gene, responsible for blue eye pigmentation, showed the characteristic mutation. The dating methods, cross-referenced using both radiocarbon analysis and stratigraphic context, placed the remains firmly in the late Paleolithic, roughly 12,700 years before present. That puts blue eyes nearly 3,000 years earlier than the earliest accepted evidence. Here's what makes this discovery even more unsettling. The burial site contained multiple remains, and DNA analysis revealed something unexpected. Not all of them had blue eyes. Some possessed brown eyes, the ancestral trait. But the blue-eyed individual wasn't an outlier or a single anomaly. Genetic sequencing showed that this person was part of a population where the blue eye mutation had already become established. That means blue eyes didn't just appear earlier than expected. They had already spread within a Scandinavian population, thousands of years before they were supposed to exist. Modern genetic models predict that for a recessive trait like blue eyes to become common in a population, it requires hundreds of generations and significant selective pressure. If the mutation appeared 12,700 years ago in Scandinavia, it would need thousands of years to reach the frequency we see today. But here's the problem. Archaeological evidence shows that blue eyes were already common across Northern Europe by 7,000 years ago. The timeline doesn't add up. There isn't enough time for the mutation to spread naturally. Dr. Willerslev and his team explored every alternative explanation. Contamination was ruled out through rigorous protocols, including extraction in sterile cleanroom environments and multiple independent verifications. They considered the possibility of separate mutations occurring in different populations. But genetic analysis showed that all modern blue-eyed individuals share the same single mutation on the OCA2 gene. Every blue-eyed person alive today traces back to one ancestral source. But that source now appears to be thousands of years older than science believed, and located in a region far from where it was supposed to have originated. The Black Sea origin theory, widely accepted for decades, began to crumble. In 2021, Dr. Willerslev's team expanded their research, analyzing DNA from over 170 ancient skeletons across Scandinavia, the Baltic region, and Western Europe. What they found deepened the mystery. Blue eyes appeared in Scandinavian samples as far back as 12,000 years ago, but remained absent from Central and Southern European populations until much later, sometimes appearing only 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. That's the opposite pattern of what you'd expect from a single origin point in the Black Sea region spreading outward. If the mutation originated near the Black Sea and migrated north, you would see it appear first in southern populations and move gradually into Scandinavia. Instead, the DNA evidence shows Scandinavians had blue eyes thousands of years before populations closer to the supposed origin point. Something is fundamentally wrong with the accepted model. Dr. Willerslev published his findings in the journal Nature in 2022, presenting the data without definitive conclusions. The paper included detailed genetic analysis, radiocarbon dating results, and stratigraphic documentation. The evidence was clear. The interpretation remained elusive. Academic responses ranged from cautious acceptance to outright rejection. Some geneticists propose that the mutation could have occurred multiple times independently in different populations. But this contradicts the genetic uniformity observed across all modern blue-eyed individuals. Others suggested errors in dating methodology, but multiple independent labs using different techniques confirmed the same timeline. One of the most troubling aspects of the discovery came from secondary analysis of the skeletal remains. The individual with 12,700-year-old blue eyes showed no genetic connection to later Scandinavian populations. DNA sequencing revealed that this person belonged to a distinct genetic lineage that appears to have vanished entirely from the modern gene pool. Their blue eyes exist in isolation, genetically disconnected from the blue eyes we see today. That raises an almost impossible question. If this ancient population had blue eyes, and they share the same OCA2 mutation found in modern Europeans, but they are genetically distinct with no direct descendants, how did the trait reappear thousands of years later in a completely separate population? Dr. Willerslev offered one explanation, though he acknowledged its speculative nature. He proposed that the blue eye mutation could have been passed through extremely low-frequency interbreeding events between the ancient Scandinavian population and later migrating groups. Over millennia, the trait could have been preserved in isolated pockets before re-emerging in larger populations. But even he admits the model requires assumptions that stretch current understanding of population genetics. Another researcher, Dr. Morten Rasmussen from the University of Cambridge, examined the findings independently. He noted that the genetic data suggests something even more unsettling. The mutation in the ancient Scandinavian remains is not just similar to the modern blue-eye mutation. It's identical, down to the specific nucleotide sequence. In genetics, identical mutations occurring independently in separate populations are extraordinarily rare. Most independent mutations affecting the same trait show slight variations in their genetic signature. The fact that the ancient Scandinavian mutation and modern European mutations are molecularly identical suggests they are not independent. They must be connected, but the DNA evidence shows no direct lineage. Dr. Rasmussen described the situation in a 2023 interview. We are looking at a genetic trait that appears in a population 12,700 years ago, vanishes completely, and then reappears thousands of years later in a different population with no apparent genetic continuity. It's as if someone inserted the trait, removed it, and reinserted it again. When pressed on what mechanism could cause such a pattern, he offered no answer. The Norwegian site where the remains were discovered has since been subjected to additional scrutiny. Ground-penetrating radar revealed anomalies beneath the burial layer, including geometric stone arrangements not typical of late Paleolithic construction. Excavation permits were requested by multiple research teams. All requests were denied. The Norwegian Directorate for Cultural Heritage cited environmental preservation concerns and restricted further access to the site. Dr. Willerslev's original samples remain the only materials available for study. In 2024, an anonymous researcher attempted to publish a follow-up analysis using the original DNA data. The paper was rejected by 3 major journals before being accepted by a smaller open-access publication. In it, the researcher argued that the genetic discontinuity could indicate something far more radical, that the blue eye mutation existed in archaic human populations long before Homo sapiens sapiens, and was introduced into the Scandinavian gene pool through interbreeding with a now extinct hominin lineage. The paper provided no direct evidence for this claim, only the observation that no other explanation fits the data. If that theory is correct, it would mean blue eyes are not a recent human innovation. They are an ancient trait inherited from a species we no longer fully understand. Attempts to obtain additional samples from other Scandinavian Paleolithic sites have met similar obstacles. Burial sites in Sweden, Finland, and Denmark that could provide comparative DNA have been declared off-limits for excavation. In some cases, sites previously open to research were quietly reclassified as protected heritage zones. One archaeologist who requested access to a site near Uppsala, Sweden, reported receiving a response stating that previous sampling had been terminated due to unspecified irregularities in findings. The nature of those irregularities was not disclosed. Dr. Willerslev continues to advocate for expanded research, but his access to new samples has been severely limited. In a 2024 lecture at the University of Oslo, he stated, "We have opened a door to a question we are not being allowed to fully explore. The evidence we have contradicts established models, but without additional data, we cannot provide a definitive alternative." He paused before adding, "Someone, somewhere, has decided that this line of inquiry should not continue." Some researchers have turned to modern populations for clues. Studies analyzing the genetic diversity of blue-eyed individuals across Europe have revealed unexpected patterns. Scandinavian populations show the highest frequency of blue eyes, but they also exhibit the greatest genetic variation within the OCA2 mutation. In population genetics, high variation typically indicates an older, more established presence of a trait. Low variation suggests recent introduction. If blue eyes spread from the Black Sea region into Scandinavia within the last 10,000 years, Scandinavian populations should show low variation. Instead, they show the opposite. The trait appears most ancient precisely where it was supposed to be most recent. Dr. Willerslev's most recent statement on the matter came in early 2025. We now know that blue eyes existed in Scandinavia at least 12,700 years ago. We know the population carrying this trait left no direct descendants. We know the mutation reappeared later in a genetically distinct population. What we do not know is how, why, or what this tells us about human history. He declined to speculate further. The frozen burial site near Trondheim remains sealed. The skeletal remains with 12,700-year-old blue eyes are stored in a restricted archive at the University of Copenhagen. Requests to study them require approval from multiple governmental and academic bodies, a process that has yet to grant access to any researcher outside Dr. Willerslev's original team. The DNA data is publicly available, but new physical samples are not. It's worth considering what we're left with if a trait we thought we understood, originating in a place and time we were certain of, now appears thousands of years earlier in a completely different location. The people who had it first left no descendants. The mutation vanished and reappeared, and every attempt to investigate further has been quietly restricted. Some believe the discovery simply reveals gaps in our understanding of ancient human migration and interbreeding. The truth, they say, is complex but ultimately explainable through refined models. Others see something more troubling, a genetic anomaly that defies natural explanation, appearing and disappearing across millennia in ways that suggest intervention, preservation, or something we lack the framework to comprehend. What is undeniable is this: the origin of blue eyes is no longer a settled question. The timeline has been shattered. The location has shifted, and the people who first carried this trait have vanished so completely that their existence contradicts the genetic continuity we see today. If you made it this far, thank you made it this far. Leave a like if this story stayed with you. Tell us what you think. Could there be a natural explanation we're missing? Or does the evidence point to something science isn't ready to accept? But remember, some questions don't get answered because we lack the data. They go unanswered because someone decided the data should stay buried.